I'll say it again. My name's Ray Gilmet. I'm the chair of the Perry High-Speed Broadband Committee.
I'm Scott
Oh,
Buckman.
Scott. I think I walked on you, Scott. Do you want to say it again?
Oh, I'm Scott McNichol. I'm a selectman with the town of Perry. Committee member.
I'm Tina Sullivan, and I am also a committee member, and I am the assistant administrator for the Select Board of Perry.
And I'm John Sermershine, committee member.
And Chris, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, I'm Chris Wade. I'm the tribal broadband consultant for the Wabanaki Nations.
And I'm Elaine Abbott, and I'm regional broadband coordinator with Sunrise County Economic Council.
Great to meet you all. As I said, I'm Corinne, and I am the director of marketing for Trailrunner, and we're waiting on Tom, who is our engineer. He's our lead engineer. CTO, that's what he is. It's like, it's late after a long day. He's our CTO. So he should be joining shortly. I just texted him. So is this kind of like a Q&A? Do you want to, ask questions or?
Well, typically what we've gotten from the other potential partners that we've interviewed is that they've come in with a presentation, and we've either done the presentation straight or we've added questions depending on usually what the speaker wants.
Okay, yeah, I wasn't aware that we were presenting what we could provide today. I can send that over after the meeting is over. But I was talking to Tom earlier, and we do cover a portion of Perry. I don't think, here he is. So as we were talking earlier, I was like, I'm pretty sure we cover Perry. And he was, mentioning that we do cover a portion. So we would just have to take a look at, what areas don't get covered, and then how, we could potentially cover those. And talking to Elaine, and again, this was I think a month ago at this point, she, we had, discussed what you might be looking for, but you're looking for, just to clarify, to fill gaps potentially with fixed wireless. So is that true that you're looking for different solutions? Are you getting presentations for fiber? Are you getting them for fixed wireless, satellite cable? Like, what is it that you've, had presentations on thus far?
Well, most of what we've gotten proposed to us are fiber solutions, except for Spectrum, which Spectrum does what Spectrum does. The fixed wireless technology that I think your company does hasn't been introduced to us yet. So hopefully you can take a little time and educate my committee on what that really means.
Sure. Tom, do you want to kind of go over what fixed wireless?
Sure. Sorry, I was a little bit late. My name is Tom Buckley. I'm the Chief Technology Officer, Wireless Partners and Broadband, Trailrunner Broadband. And in general, I guess there's a question that I have. Does the group understand who Wireless Partners is, for one?
No.
Okay. So Wireless Partners, fundamentally, we're a cellular wireless carrier. We operate just like US Cellular, just like Verizon, just like AT&T. So we are a regional player. We operate in Maine, New Hampshire, and Vermont. But we do not sell directly to the consumer from a mobility perspective, for a phone perspective. What we do is we build and operate in the white spaces where AT&T, Verizon, US Cellular, T-Mobile have not built. So for instance, in Washington County, we started building back in 2014. We brought Verizon services to Washington County. We built about 40 locations in the county in order to bring a service from Verizon customer base. We in turn operated that, sold it back to Verizon in 2018-19. We signed a contract with AT&T and expanded their service with AT&T FirstNet throughout the county. In fact, we currently right now have another dozen sites that we're turning up within the last 3-4 months, right on through April, that will enhance services out to locations such as Lambertville, Codyville. We just added service into Robbinston to better the service on Route 1. We brought the AT&T FirstNet service through Perry, through Pembroke, through Pleasant Point, through Eastport, through Lubec. So we have a long-standing history from a wireless perspective of operating just as the national carriers operate. So we're not a smaller regional WISP. If you know, not to say that their services are not good offerings, but we operate with equipment that's such that it's what we consider, it's called a tier 1 operating carrier. So what we've done in this evolution of things, in building all these locations, we currently operate about 100 locations throughout the state of Maine, New Hampshire, and Vermont. In those locations, because we've already built service for the big major carriers, we went ahead and brought in our own service on top of that. So before the major carriers came, they would roam on our service. And then once we built that site for them, they no longer needed our service for roaming. So we expanded it into fixed wireless. We took the excess capacity that we had and grew it out fundamentally from that perspective, knowing that there was a need. So our service is essentially, it's known as 3GPP service. So it's an international standards body service, as opposed to a small independent company selling their network and their devices for the house, and your device will only work on their network. Ours is more robust from the perspective that it is evolved and developed just along the same lines as the technologies that you hear that AT&T, Verizon, US Cellular, T-Mobile all talk about. 4G, 5G, 6G. Same evolution is there for our technology. It's a bit more expensive for us to operate, but it's inherently builds in its own evolution and survivability. So what we're offering today, I think Corinne maybe mentioned that we already have a site, within the town boundaries of Perry that we operate. We also operate off of the water tank at Pleasant Point. So there's a portion of your township that's covered by the tank from Pleasant Point. We operate in Dennisville. We operate in Edmonds. We currently right now have just turned up a new service offering from an AT&T perspective in Trescott on the other side of the bay. So we're ringing, the property. We go north on Route 1. Now, I believe where some of the service offerings that we offer today may not quite get yet is more into what I would believe to be more, and I can't think of the name of the lake, but more up towards the Robbinston border, inland more. So it's more away from, the coastal area of Route 1 and those population areas.
Mhm.
The service offering today, and I don't know if Corinne mentioned it or not, from the Trailrunner website, you can see based upon your address location, you can punch in there. The system that we have available will represent back to you what service might be available to you. Depending upon proximity to the tower location, it could be as much as 50 megabits down, 5 megabits up. So we have a robust service offering there. And the evolution of things, now this is in a 4G technology, the evolution of things will be to take that at least to double it as we go to 5G.
Are you able to offer symmetrical service at all?
Unfortunately, no. The technology that we offer does not allow for a symmetrical service.
Can you give me an idea what fraction of Perry you now cover?
From a township perspective, geography wise,
Yes.
probably, I want to say 60%, 65%. And we can, Ray, we can send you a map just in general to show you what the service, the underlying coverage is from our site. It won't definitely guarantee you there's service underneath those colors because it's a mobility footprint, but it'll give you an idea anyway.
All right.
Tom, you mentioned you can get up to 50 megabytes on a download. What would be some of the factors that would impact or basically decrease that bandwidth? And when you say locations, are you talking about the antennas with the transmitters and receivers on them?
Well, when I say locations, it's going to be locations proximity to the site. So the closer you are to the site, the more throughput capabilities you would have, the better the serviceability is from a downlink uplink perspective. The technology is not everybody talks about line of sight, how fixed wireless is line of sight. Well, this is an evolution of fixed wireless from a mobility technology. And that is not it is more of a non-line of sight technology. So without getting too technical, just because you can't see the tower does not mean you can't have service. The service or the signals actually bounce. So there is what they call multipath. So you've got many ways to get talking back to a tower. So that creates some different anomalies. So you've got terrain that would be a challenge. You've got vegetation coverage that might be a challenge. If depending upon the device if you had a metal roof and the device was inside, that metal roof would be a challenge. So typically what we do is we install an external device on the location. So those are all limiting factors. The challenge with this type of a service, now granted, most of the other wireless service providers, most of the other WISPs operate in unlicensed spectrum. So they're limited to what power levels they can achieve. With our licensed spectrum, that's regulated completely differently. We can achieve tremendous amount more power levels than a smaller WISP could in the unlicensed spectrum. Now, what that does mean is the base station can talk louder than the device at a customer's house can talk back to it. So what that creates is what's called a link budget. So the tower is so much louder than the customer premise equipment. So you have to balance everything so the base station can hear the device. That's some of your limitations.
Can I just, excuse me, can I just ask you to clarify the term WISP for the
So
committee?
WISP is Wireless Internet Service Provider.
Thank you.
It's just an acronym. So for instance, Pioneer had a wireless service for a while. That would be considered a WISP. Axiom had a wireless service that would be considered a WISP. Red Zone has a wireless service that's considered a WISP. The idea behind that is it's a wireless service that's primarily focused on internet access or broadband access.
How does weather impact your signals?
So weather is not so much an impact. It's not such that we're so high in the frequency where a sheet of rain would become an impedance. So everything we operate in is the same as I said, anything that any of the cellulars operate in. So if your cell phone doesn't have an issue with weather, our service doesn't have an issue with weather.
Can you give us an idea of what your pricing schedule is for both residential and business?
Where'd Corinne go?
I'm here. So for residential, well, basically we have one major plan, which is the unlimited plan. So it's unlimited data, and then it is and that's $69.95 a month. There's a $100 installation fee, and that's basically to cover the cost of the installers going out to a location to install a device. If you're close to the tower, or you're in close proximity and you have a very strong signal, or the strongest signal, we'll send you an indoor unit in a box, and then it's set up, kind of plug and play. Comes with instructions and everything. And that's really the only cost, is that monthly cost to keep it going. We do offer a business backup plan, but that is it's not unlimited data. We put a data cap on that. We also offer seasonal plans. We have a lot of Maine is vacation state, so we do offer up to 6 months a seasonal plan where you don't have to be disconnected, but you don't have to pay the full price. I think we have one plan that's $19.95 and the other one's a little bit more, but you do get a little bit of trickle data, and that's so that people can run their security cameras and any other devices that they have that they need to keep running while they're not there. So, right, like I said, we offer the one plan, and that pretty much covers everyone's needs. We offer certain discounts if you have, if you're a campsite and you have multiple locations and you want to put a unit in everybody's cabin, we do offer certain pricing, separate pricing for that. And then a specific business we can take a look at. And if they need 2 devices, we take a look at that and see specifically on a per case basis what they would need, and it would be custom pricing for that as well. And if you haven't visited it already, the website is mytrailrunner.com, and that's where you can kind of check out all of the pricing, check out our offerings. You can try different addresses, and it just says check availability, and that is how you would, see what you would qualify for.
Mm-hmm. How much, Tom, how much flexibility do you have in dealing with individual problems? One of the things that is our, goal is to get basically the same quality of service to everyone in the community, all 500 or so of the houses.
So, okay. So as far as dealing with problems, are you talking about troubleshooting, customer service, repair kind of thing, or just in general troubles that we may encounter if we had to try and cover 100% of the customers?
Well, probably both, but
Okay.
it's the second one that I'm thinking of.
Okay. So again, we have federal wireless licenses, okay, that encompass the state of Maine. So from a physical perspective, we technically can build something anywhere in the state. Now, then what we also have to do is, because we're federally licensed, we have federal guidelines as to all the stipulations and the requirements that we have to go through and adhere to in order to build a facility to support that, be it on, a rooftop, a telephone pole, or a tower. We have these regulations that we have to comply with. Now, That's something that we do on a daily basis. So it's not a cumbersome thing for us. It's just a time thing. So, we're very creative in the solutions that we have. We've done situations, for instance, up in downtown Calais. We put in what's called a ballast mounted monopole. And actually there's one in Eastport as well, where the foundation was not dug because it was ledge. So we leveled the ledge, put in a gravel base, and we brought in what is a galvanized steel frame that held pre-constructed counterweights as the foundation, and then the monopole was mounted to that. So that becomes the ballast for the monopole. So it's inobtrusive. It's less environmental issues with disturbing the ground, less cost. So that's one example. We just recently did 2 brand new towers, one in St. Francis, one in Allagash, in Aroostook, in let's see, 4 months, 190-foot towers that we built for service up there based upon some requirements that they had. So we can go a lot of different ways. We've done telephone poles, we've done rooftops. I've been building and operating wireless networks from North Carolina through West Virginia, through all New York, through Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont for the last 35 years. So we have, I don't want to say tricks up our sleeve, but we have a lot of creative opportunities and ways to adhere to requirements, federal and local, and also meet the requirements of what the technology and service needs to be delivered. Now, as long as the lines of survivability of the network and troubleshooting and whatnot, we have local technicians in the network that are available 24/7 that monitor alarm systems 24/7, that are dispatched either remotely and or locally in order to maintain the network and repair troubles. Every one of our tower locations has a minimum of 8 hours battery backup. And within the schedule of that battery backup, we have portable generators to deploy to every one of these sites in case of emergencies. So in a lot of situations where you've probably experienced power outages, in the region out there, the AT&T network, the Wireless Partners Network, did not go out of line because our team is out there operating it and maintaining it. And the same goes, being in our network, the same would be supported for the fixed wireless network. And in addition to that, the Trailrunner customer operations team is available as well from a troubleshooting perspective, be it a device issue. They're available online to talk through the issue, and or if it identifies that there's a problem with the trouble or with the equipment, it could be a dispatch of an installation technician and or shipment of new equipment.
And all of our customer service representatives are also local to Maine. We don't outsource our customer service. Do you have a timeline for this project that you want to see everyone covered in the community? A goal for a timeline?
Probably as soon as possible. But really the determining factor is going to be our ability to succeed in getting probably either state or federal funding to actually pay for the infrastructure. Perry by itself really doesn't have that type of flexibility.
Mhm.
We really are a pretty small rural town here. So the clock wouldn't start until we actually scored on a grant.
Yeah.
And then so on and so forth.
And you have to submit your plan as far as what you'd like to do too.
Exactly. That's the process that we're going through now. We're trying to educate ourselves so that we can make a good choice for the community. And then we need to go to the select board and certainly get their buy-in on the whole process. So what we'll probably do after we've talked to everyone is we'll probably sub-select and go out with RFPs. And then from that point, we'll have to make a final decision. Probably a
you-
lot of negotiation going in there too, you know.
So Tom has given you a lot of information about, you know, what we do, what Wireless Partners and Trailrunner can do. Would you be looking for a proposal as far as how we can essentially what we have right now and then fill the gaps that you're looking for to get everyone covered potentially in the community as best as possible, and what the cost would be? Is that
Yes.
what?
Yes.
Yep. Yep.
Okay.
Okay. So, certainly one of the things, and Corinne and I chatted earlier today about, you know, this conversation. And one of the things that we found in a lot of the communities that we've spoken with, even though we've been operating for quite a while, is that the community isn't aware of the availability of the service. So, you know, one of the things, Ray, as I said, and I'm happy to share with you coverage maps. I can tell you that we currently have customers in your town on our service. And then, you know, certainly the email access, or I should say the website access to Trailrunner can give you the opportunity to solicit. I mean, you can just go in there and solicit any of the addresses within your township, and it will come back and tell you whether or not Trailrunner service is available to you. This is more of an interim perspective. And not to say that we're not in a position to come and bring a proposal to you to help provide service for the full footprint, but this is something that's available to you today. Now, I will tell you that should the evolution of things and decisions become, you know, your choices from a fixed wireless perspective versus a fiber perspective, or an evolution to fiber, the fixed wireless deployment will happen tremendously sooner than any fiber deployment will.
So with the wireless, you have no lines to run. You have no easements to get for poles or anything like that. Basically, a customer calls you and you just go to their house and set up a system. Am I correct?
Correct. If the site exists today, if we're building a new site, that site needs to have you know, power, needs to have backhaul. And right now, 100% of the locations that we operate today have fiber already provided to the tower location. So it's, you know, it's an evolution of things where performance-wise, you know, there is growth for those. But that is correct. We do not need to, you know, to go get an easement, you know, to string any wire, anything into the home.
So with that said, basically the only cost would be the cost to the customer. If I'm correct. I mean, if I was to get Trailrunner today, it's just the $69.95 for the unlimited plan. If I got this right.
And what, the installation fee?
And the
$100.
installation fee. Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
that's it.
Yep.
That's it.
And Corinne, correct me if I'm wrong, there is no contract.
There is no contract.
And there's no lines to maintain. There's no liability to anybody or anything like that.
Nope.
No, there's a, depending upon the location, as Corinne mentioned, there's two different types of equipment we use. There is an outdoor unit that is probably 10 by 10, 12 by 12, you know, kind of little pizza box, if you want to call it that, on what's called a J mount, just like a satellite antenna mount on the side of the location, be it on the eave or, you know, something similar.
Yeah, I don't remember where I've seen them.
Yeah, and if it's a an indoor unit, then that is shipped to you, and it looks just like a little wireless router and like a Wi-Fi router.
Sorry to interrupt. Do you have any places that are difficult to get service now, like terrain in behind a hill or anything like that? that are difficult, but you still are able to get them service with good speeds?
Off the top of my head, I can't elaborate on that, but I think, Corinne, I think we can get an anecdotal answer for that from some of the installers.
Yeah, we can get
we
to
can
every
certainly, yeah.
location. They've
I'm just
definitely, they're
I was just wondering if you could service all of Perry, because there are some places that may be blocked by a hill or whatnot. I don't know.
Yeah, and you're correct. You're correct. And from the locations that we operate today, I would say no. But what we would have to do is supplement the infrastructure we have today into some of those locations where it's currently terrain blocked.
I have a quick question, Tom
Mhm.
and Corinne. So I believe that you mentioned earlier in your presentation that you cover about 60% of the community of Perry. And so what about the other 40%? I'm just curious why that's not covered. I don't know the answer, and I'm
Okay, so, and it's, it's a reasonable question. So contractually, wireless partners, when they built their networks, okay, the design criteria we had initially was with Verizon. Okay, so they had a certain criteria and a certain amount of sites that they would contract with. So the initial driving factor was the Route 1 corridor, okay, because it was a mobility perspective. AT&T came along, and although they overlaid all of the same mobility, they had some other requirements, because from a FirstNet perspective, that's more geographical. So so that's why, for instance, we just added another site in Robbinston, because there was a little bit of a marginal hole. You couldn't necessarily get all the way up Route 1 from Perry to Calais. But in their evolution of things, we have sites that we had proposed that would be more in the, again, I call it hinterland. So as you go north from Perry, Dennisville, north to Cholade, up into Bering and such, that particular stretch, they had not necessarily, or they didn't have a budget for yet, but they do know that there's a need there. So that's why we hadn't gone there. And as the evolution of things here with the fixed wireless product, we haven't been driven by a customer request and the customer base focus into some of these areas as yet, such as these conversations that we're having with you and other communities.
As you go through the thinking process here, obviously, I think it's obvious to me anyway, you'd have to put in new towers to get more coverage for Perry, correct?
Yes, that would be correct. You'd have to do, depending upon a location, would, as we would look at the design, would depend upon what those requirements would reveal based upon the tower need and size and location.
Who would pay for that?
Well, again, it all depends on how things are driven. We have a company, or one of our subsidiaries is a company called Rising Tide Towers. So that, because our need in development of a lot of the networks throughout Maine was that there needed to be infrastructure built. So we were contracting other people to do it, and spending a lot of money and only getting a structure and have to pay a lease. So we internally brought that in-house. So we have our own leasing company. We have our own tower division. We contract construction, but we build and operate our own towers. So that would be, again, depending upon what the need is. The evolution of things, you do have a return on investment that you have to look at. You start looking at a 190-foot tower structure, and you're looking at $300,000 to $500,000 investment.
Mm-hmm. And I assume that your business model is such that your company owns everything and will continue to own it in perpetuity.
If we're building and operating it, that's the intent, yes. So for instance, we had done a number of things within Washington County, and then we recently worked with AT&T to identify another 13 locations that needed to be built in the county that they needed. There was more, there's still more. For instance, Medevacs, which we operate, Cooper, which we operate, but it wasn't in their budget for those two, but the rest were. So for instance, we just built new tower structure in Marshfield, in Northfield. We are actually bridging the gap on Airline Road. So you will be able to go from DeBlois to Wesley with service. So with that, we worked with the county where we funded and built the tower structures, and the county was able to come up with a grant, a TIF grant, in order to build the power line out to Tug Mountain. Now, we don't have nothing to do with the power line. Power line's owned by EMIC, so it's an economical benefit for the county that there's now power service on Route 9 all the way out to Tug Mountain. So it's kind of a joint partnership in some of those situations. So we're not against that in any way. The question just becomes, if we go down the road, we need to understand that, yeah, there's a viable solution. There's going to be some return on investment for our investment as well.
So if we came to you and said, we want you to give us an estimate for basically fill in the blanks build for Perry so that everybody gets covered.
Mhm.
Is that something that you can do?
Yes. It is something we can do. We can look at, what we'll do is we will look at the current service offering that we have. Then what we do is we also look at the other infrastructure that is available. So other tower structures, any other tall buildings and or hilltops that might be available from a view shed perspective to be able to look down into a community to serve certain things. We'll evaluate all those locations to determine what's going to be the best fit before we even go and look at, okay, we need to build a tower there, or we need to build a tower here, or you know what, we can put a pole here. So yes, and then we can design the RF propagation such that we can actually look at it, and based upon the technology that we offer off of that tower, we can tell you what the throughput capabilities would be in different locations.
Okay.
We did a project in Northeast Vermont known as the Northeast Kingdom. It's known as Essex County. We worked with the state of Vermont probably 2 years ago. They had some CARES money, and we had just built 4 tower locations for AT&T there. So they gave us just off those 4 tower locations, they gave us, I want to say it was roughly 800 addresses. We were able to provide usable 25/3 service to almost 700 of those locations. And as we did drive test verification for the others were off the grid locations you couldn't even get to. They didn't have driveways, but they had an address. But so we're not unfamiliar with these types of situations.
Okay. Committee, do you have any other questions or discussions?
I was just going to ask if, like the timeline, if we decided, okay, this is what the estimate looks good, and we have that conversation, what would the timeline be to have everyone have service?
Yeah. So depending upon the need, well, for instance, the evolution of things would be to upgrade service availability from the existing sites. So there's a volume that would happen, relatively quickly, within 4 months. We're not talking 3-4 years. The other situations will be based upon, what the need is from a zoning perspective or, a tower structure perspective. But in general, we build, if, just as a guideline, if we had to build a 190-foot tower, go through zoning, even if it has to be through LUPC, which it doesn't because you're a township, right? 6 months.
Wow. Thank you.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Any others? John, Scott?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay,
Nothing for me.
okay. I would like to see the map.
Absolutely.
That you offered in, Corinne, if you have something that you have, in terms of a presentation or something. I mean, some of us don't write very fast anymore. So, these types of things are very good for me.
Yep. I can send something over and then we can pull together, Tom and I will talk and we can pull something over that looks like a, fill the gaps proposal.
Great, great.
I have a quick question for Tom. This is
Sure.
John. What's the future as far as wireless ISPs, as far as the bandwidth, upload, download? It's tough to compete with the fiber optics, but think you'll be able to compete something approachable to those numbers?
So the evolution, everybody hears 4G, 5G, 6G is coming. Those are evolutions in technology that still use the underlying radio spectrum and use it more efficiently, okay, in order to transfer the information across the radio interface to and from the devices. I can tell you that the evolution between 4G and 5G, you're probably talking 100% increase. So then the question becomes the operating frequency that you're in. So for instance, right now we work with PCS spectrum and we have what's called a 10 by 10 spectrum block. So as you go to a 20 by 20, you double the spectrum. So with 4G, you don't get a double of throughput. You probably get another quarter. So if we're at 50 right now, you might get 75 down. Okay. Now, when you take that same amount of spectrum and go to 5G, the efficiency is such that now you're pushing 150. Now, as you grow, the technology grows to 5G and your 10 by 10 goes to 20 by 20, or you go to 40 by 40, then the capabilities, now you're pushing a gig. Now, unfortunately, that's not symmetrical.
Right.
Okay. And that is, but again, part of that becomes an efficiency, because if you think about it, you got 100 by 100 at your house, you're wasting a lot of bandwidth because you're never going to be running 100 on the uplink. So from an efficiency perspective, that's a waste of capital. That's a waste of light bandwidth that could be used for something else. So from a spectral efficiency with radio, you're limited. You don't have this fluctuation of light's not licensed. You can go and change the spectrum of light through the equipment you have. Where radio is licensed and controlled, we can't go more than what we own. So we have to manage it from an efficiency perspective. So if 100 by 100 is what you wanted, but yet you never need more than 25 on the uplink for anything that you're doing, video or whatever, then that's a waste of space. So that's, the technology doesn't allow for it either, but yet that's one of the definitions there.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, I want to thank you both for giving us the benefit of your experience and sharing that with us.
You're quite welcome. And you know, I don't know if Elaine shared with you our contact information, but again, we operate in your town, we operate in your county, and we're growing the service offerings for the benefit of your constituents, everybody in the county, as well as the state of Maine. If you have questions and we're available to answer them or share information with you, we're happy to.
And if you do take a look at the website and put in an address and have questions about, potentially, coverage, you can call into you can contact one of us, but you can also call the customer service line, and they'll be more than happy to explain, getting set up and addresses and why something, it may not be as strong, if it's right on the fringe line and all that kind of stuff. So it's any questions pertaining to coverage, the existing coverage that we do have and the addresses that it may cover, please feel free to call our customer service line, because they're phenomenal with all of
Great.
that. And I will provide something more marketing focused to Elaine tomorrow, and then Tom will work on something proposal wise.
Sounds great.
Thank
Do
you.
you have any questions for us?
Not currently. I mean, again, we kind of worked, we still are working, within your footprint. So we're, familiar with the terrain challenges. We're generally familiar with where your population is. And, so we have a lot to work with. Okay. So we can, we can go back behind the scenes in our day-to-day stuff and look at different options before you even go as far as looking at an RFP. We can be ahead of the game and have some solutions. And like I said, as you're waiting and working through this, because I know there's a lot of challenges with being in a position to go after NCA, go to the MCA and or directly to NTIA for any funding. There's a time and a gap where you're sitting waiting to do nothing, without anything. So if there's something we can do to help, we're happy to.
Great. I really appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you,
We'll be in
Corinne. Thank
contact.
you, Tom.
Oh, you're quite welcome.
Thank
Enjoy the
you.
weekend.
Thank
You
you.
too.
Have a
too.
good night. Bye.
Bye. All right, so I am just going to send you Corinne's and Thomas's emails, their contact info. I'm going to do that right now.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Any comments for us, Chris?
No, I like Tom. I've been dealing with him a little bit here and there over the last couple months. In some places, a wireless solution is what's going to work. In the reality of Maine being Maine. I'd hate to see it be sort of the last evolution somebody gets for a network, just because I think there are some limitations. But again, I think especially with the geography of Perry, you may have a couple of solutions that end up being the solution. There's probably going to be a mix of things, just because of costs. So
Right.
I think it's great to hear the presentations, and so far from what I've seen, Tom, they seem like a fairly straightforward organization. They've been doing this for a long time, but I don't have any direct interactions with them that I can speak to the quality of their networks or anything like that. But I like what I've heard so far.
Have you heard any testimonials from customers?
No, and that's one of the things that is really tough, and you have to look to people that really know data, because anecdotal stuff is so hard to sift through. A lot of people can be very upset about a lot of things that don't necessarily have to do with the thing. So finding real accurate data would be tough, but I'm sure you can, get some idea by talking to neighbors and people that have it. You've got people in Perry, people in Pleasant Point. I assume there must be people in Eastport that have the service. By doing some of these outreach things, you might be able to get some input from them.
Didn't we have some people that replied to the survey that are Trailrunner customers in Perry?
Yeah, I don't know the exact number. I think it's somewhere around 3 people out of the 100 we did.
Yeah, so I can definitely cross-tabulate that information and see what those folks had to say specifically.
That might be useful. Thanks.
Yeah, I mean, if you guys, I think you've still got like another 10 minutes or something. If you're patient with me, I can probably pull it up now.
I mean, I know one of the people that had Trailrunner, they were very excited about the survey and the possibility of another ISP filling the void.
Be curious to hear somebody, like a Netlink, Starlink, and a Trailrunner compare experiences too. See how those two technologies are kind of stacking up against each other.
Right.
Starlink, I have Starlink, and the numbers, Trailrunner is not even close to the numbers that Starlink can provide. And actually, because Spectrum has moved in next door to Robinson, Elon decided to give us a price break. So, it's comparable. I mean, I'm paying 90 versus 70 for Trailrunner, and I don't, I'm looking at 200, maybe 250 download and upload, somewhere about 20 to 30. So for my needs is perfect. And the only event that I've had as far as weather was when we had that recent heavy snow. I was offline for a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah, and the only thing I see on their website, and I looked before as well, is that it advertises up to 50 megabits, but I don't see any references to what the actual upload plan speeds are. But I haven't dug in very deep either. So yeah, it sounds like Starlink is definitely has a higher performance package.
Yeah, I think he said it was 50 and 5.
I was able to pull up, if you want me to share my screen,
Yep.
I can show you there were 3 folks who answered the survey who said they have Trailrunner. And so I've pulled that up. So just 1 second so you guys can see it. Hold on 1 second. Let me minimize all of you. Okay, so these right here are the folks who said that they have Trailrunner. And there are 3. They're all year-round residents. And so they specified Trailrunner. These are the 3 right here. Trailrunner, Trailrunner, Trailrunner. And so so here green is yes, blue is no, and yellow is no opinion on these. So overall, the service of the overall internet at their home, it's 50-50. Well, only 2 people answered it. Reliability of the internet, all said that they liked it. Speed of the internet, all 3 said they weren't happy with it. And customer service, 2 are pleased with it, 1 has no opinion. Bandwidth up and down, all 3 are not happy with it. As you can see here.
Right.
There's some comments, hold on. Good and fairly reliable, but gets really slow certain times of the day. Good, but would like better. So of the 3 respondents, 2 of them have 1 to 2 people in the house, and 1 household is 3 to 5 folks. They're all running more than 5 devices. They all experience speed issues. So 1 person said it's in the evening, and only one other person answered. So 2 of the people, 1 said it's evening, and 1 other person said time of day doesn't make a difference. The other person didn't answer. They all feel like the cost is reasonable. They pay between 45 and 60, or of the 2 that answered it. And no one is working, or the 2 people who answered it, none are working from home. Let's see, homework or education. So 1 of the 3 is, and 1 isn't. So it looks like maybe one person didn't go all the way through. Nobody wanted free help using their device. Everybody, yeah, there is one person that skipped a lot of the questions here. But so 2 said it was extremely important to have reliable internet at home. I think, yep, and one person dropped out of this survey. So the 2 Trailrunner subscribers that went through the survey said it was extremely important to them to have reliable internet service in Perry. And that's that, folks.
Great, thanks.
Oh, you're welcome.
I love the way you drive that.
I spend my life on that thing, so yeah.
Good. Well, I'm willing to call it a day unless you have other items that you want to discuss at today's meeting.
So
Do you want
next,
to go through the approval of the previous meeting and the notes? Do you want to go through that since we didn't have an opportunity, or?
I haven't finished them.
Oh, okay, no, I just noticed it was the agenda, so I didn't know how difficult it was.
Yeah, that presentation I've watched a couple of times already. It was a lot to take in. So it's a work in progress. I'll
It's
send it
fine.
along.
Not
Oh,
a problem. Like I said, I'm guilty of not posting these things on our website, so
Yeah.
we have shared.
and just
shared
as a
blame.
reminder, next week I think is your last incumbent ISP, which is Axiom.
Excellent.
Yeah. So, and that is yet another different yet similar model to some others.
Yep.
So cool.
This has been truly educational for me. I'm just amazed.
It always is for me too. So
Have you seen the presentations by Trailrunner before?
I've spoken with Trailrunner before about some different communities, but that was a totally different situation.
Okay.
But this is the first time. So I've heard some of this information, but not in the context of some place where they already are. It's when I spoke with them, it was about an extremely, extremely rural community. They don't even have cell service. So
Okay.
And that is one thing to keep in mind too. Like the scenarios where an MCA grant could come into play with them is pretty not that it's non-existent, but it's going to be very low possibility for it fitting, just because of their level of service isn't high enough to qualify very well in the scoring.
Okay. Shall we call it a meeting? All those in favor?
Sounds good.
everyone have a wonderful evening.
You too.
I'll see you
Yes.
guys next week.
See
Thank
you
you.
next week.
Bye.
Indeed.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.